Let's have a nice cup of TRE in the afternoon with Hannah Murray.
Joining us on the line now is Will Ellsworth-Jones, the acclaimed author of Banksy, the man behind the wall. His latest book is Banksy's Lost Works, on the trail of his vanishing street art. It's the amazing story of the Banksys you cannot see, detailing why they vanished, who was responsible for their disappearance, and what was their final fate. Welcome to the show, Will.
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for joining us. So where did your kind of fascination of Banksy start?
It started when the publisher of my first book said, you should write a book about Banksy. I had no knowledge of him. I'd done no street art, no graffiti, and I learned from scratch. And that allowed me to sort of ask any question I felt like, any dumb question, any sensible question. And people were very kind in answering me. And the more I learned, the more I wanted to write about it.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, one of the most fascinating things about Banksy, of course, is that we don't really know who he is, which is quite remarkable in this day and age, isn't it?
Yeah, I think people don't really want to know who he is. Because if you really search on the web, you can sort of find out who he is. But there was one story that said pretty definitely who it was. And afterwards, all the comments at the end of this story on the web said, "Why are you doing this? We don't want to know. You're spoiling our fun."
Interesting. So he started in Bristol, didn't he, over 25 years ago? That's where we first saw his work.
Yes, that's right. That was his hometown. That is his hometown.
And the interesting thing about your new book, it talking about how much of his stuff has been vandalized or even taken down. When did that start happening?
Well, probably about started vandalizing very quickly after he became well known. But the sort of the industry that's almost developed around getting hold of a Banksy is probably in the last 15 years. I mean, at one stage, he would be, he'd do a piece and on a wall, and the council would say, "This has got to go." And they'd either wipe it out themselves or get the owner of the building to wipe it out. But now, if Banksy comes and paints on your wall, you want to keep it, and the council wants to keep it. It's a sort of honor rather than a disgrace.
Yeah. It's amazing how that's happened, isn't it? And I think in recent years, we see more and more street art appearing. Certainly here in Spain, there's some beautiful, very Spanish Andalusian villages that yet have these incredible, beautiful paintings on the walls of like apartment blocks, which was unheard of 20 years ago, I think.
Right. It's become much more accepted. I think it's Banksy who's led the way. I mean, graffiti used to be really introvert and only appeal to the people who were doing it, their peers. And they would write tags which neither you nor I would probably comprehend properly or understand what they were saying. But Banksy came along with his stencils and changed all that. And it made it, he wasn't appealing to his peers, he was appealing to all of us, or most of us. Not everyone likes him, I agree, but it was a much more easily accessible art, and really enjoyable to see. And as you say, there are some beautiful paintings done by others on walls all over the world now.
Yeah. So let's look at some of the pieces that you talk about in the book, some of the ones that have been destroyed. There are some that have been painted on destroyed buildings around Kyiv in Ukraine, which must have happened fairly recently, but they've already been cut off the wall by a group of locals.
Right. Those were done, and I'm trying to remember exactly when, about 18 months ago. And it must have been quite hard for him to go there, not knowing the place well. He'd obviously had a fixer who helped him, but finding a place and finding walls that really worked. And people must have thought, what's going on here? There's a war going on. And here's this bloke painting on the wall. but soon, once it was learned that it was Banksy, some Ukrainians were immediately trying to get the wall down and basically steal it. They got stopped by the police, and one or two of them were charged. And I think the pieces are being held, and they're going to be displayed in some sort of museum, maybe open air museum eventually. But it was a fairly remarkable thing for him to do in the middle of a war.
Yeah, for sure. So do we know of any pieces that have been stolen off the street that people have got away with, that people have, taken home with them?
I think there are very few, because it'd be very difficult to sell if you've taken it off the street, because everyone knows it's there. There was one man, an architect in Bristol, who with permission, he didn't steal it, with permission, he took a leopard off a building he was working on, and he asked the owner of the building if he could do that. And it was not a big leopard, it was a sort of fairly crude early Banksy work, and he didn't know what to do with it after that, so he hid it under his bed. So it's been sitting under his bed for years. They're still not sure what to do with it, really, but it's still there.
So would he not be able to sell it?
He doesn't want to sell it.
He doesn't want to.
No,
he just wants to put it under the bed.
There are other people who have, works that have been probably sort of legally taken off, but are for sale or have been sold, certainly. And there's one in Margate, the famous one, which is on the cover of the book, of the battered housewife. Now, taking that piece of graffiti off the wall, you didn't take the graffiti off, you took the whole wall out. It was an incredible piece of engineering to take down one wall to get this huge picture of this woman getting her own back on the man who'd obviously battered her. It's a huge picture on the wall. To get it off, they had to sort of support the whole rest of the building and then rebuild the wall. Now, it's been on sale publicly for a price of £6 million. Will they get that? No. Will they get $1 million? I doubt it, but it's yours if you want it. And meanwhile, it's been sort of, what do you do with the wall? Where do you keep it? It's been to about 3 or 4 galleries, first in Margate and then in London, and now it's back in Margate, another gallery. But of course, once a piece is taken out off the wall, out of its context, it diminishes it. It's not. It's a whole piece of a Banksy piece of work out in the open air. That's where it belongs, and that's why I consider a work like that lost. I mean, the owners of it presumably would disagree, but to me, without the context, you're seeing another piece. You're not seeing what Banksy really painted.
And something I don't understand the legalities of it all. Maybe you'll understand a bit better. But the fact that Banksy, of course, is very much still alive. If someone is selling his work that they have acquired from somewhere, surely he should get the money. He should be the rightful owner. I mean, how does that all work?
Well, you're right. Legally, it's a sort of a dog's dinner, because whose wall did he paint on? Not his wall, someone else's wall. Did he get permission from that person? No. If he wants to claim the piece, he's probably going to have to identify himself. Does he want to do that? No.
No.
Does he want to authenticate it? No. So it's really a very mixed area as to who gets the rewards for it. And in this case, he doesn't want to sell it. He doesn't think it should be moved, and he doesn't want to get any money for it.
No. I mean, do we know how how much money he has made from his art so far? I mean, I'm not aware of pieces that he makes in order to sell. I'm assuming he's a wealthy man, but I'm trying to understand where the wealth would come from.
Well, if he does, I don't know how much he's worth, but he's worth a lot. If he does a piece on the street, he can copy that in stencil onto a painting, onto a canvas, and sell it for considerable sum of money. Because his pieces that are then being resold for up to 6 million or more on occasions. So he does make money. He used to sell prints very cheaply, and then people would just simply buy them and flip them and double the price. So he's given up doing that. But he does sell work that supports him. You see the piece on the street, and then you'll see it on canvas.
Yeah. And one of his most famous works that was lost, if you like, was the one that was shredded. I mean, that was an incredibly bizarre thing to have happened.
Yeah, it was remarkable, really, that he, and it was, what a clever piece of work. I mean, it was a work, the girl with the balloon, and it was being sold at Sotheby's, and in the middle of this auction, I don't know whether it was him or one of his mates, pushed a button, and it started to shred at the bottom of the frame. And it only it shredded about half of it. And the interesting thing is, there it stopped. And Banksy has always claimed that at that point, the mechanism hidden in the back of the frame malfunctioned. But talking to Sotheby's about it, they say that actually one of their experts says he's convinced that it was stopped exactly where Banksy wanted it to stop, so that half of the picture was framed and was shredded, and the other half was still existing and a nice image in the frame. So there was something that could be sold and that would always be there. Yeah. And indeed, the woman, I think, the purchaser from Germany, who'd bought it, she was given a week by Sotheby's to decide whether she actually wanted it, because she bought something which was not quite what she thought she was going to buy. Very wisely, she said, yes, I still want it. And, a couple of years later, it was sold for millions. I'm trying to remember the price. I think it was like 15 million. Because it is an extraordinary commentary on money and art, really.
Yes.
And worth I'm not going to say it's worth every penny at that sort of price, but worth every penny that she paid for it.
Yeah. And what about his disappearing rats?
They disappear wherever, whenever he puts one up, someone's trying to take them down. And a lot of rats have been painted over the years, and most of them have gone. I think it's fair to say. It's difficult to find Banksys nowadays, because so many of them have been painted over or taken down. But you can see them on the web, but you can't. If you go for a tour of Banksys in Bristol, where his hometown, you get to see about 4 or 5 Banksys. The rest are other people, other street artists, which is fascinating to see, but they're not Banksy. And even the pieces he did in London this summer, many of them have disappeared already. Mm. One is going to the Museum of London when it opens. One was painted over by Transport for London. 2 were stolen, never been heard of again. I think 9 pieces, maybe about 3 exist on the street now.
Gosh. And are there copycat artists out there? Are there people who are producing works very similar to Banksy to try and make people think that they could be a Banksy?
Yes. And I regularly see stories saying the new Banksy or is this Banksy, in various towns in in England. And it always makes a good story. Is this a Banksy? And 99% of the time, it's not a Banksy, but it creates a good headline, makes a good story.
Yeah.
There are people who wouldn't want to be Banksy. I'd love to be Banksy.
I do find it amazing, though, that there are art experts out there who can look at a stenciled piece of art on the wall and know whether it's a Banksy or not. I think that's incredibly impressive.
Yes. I mean, on the whole, he does confirm that they are his on his Instagram account, but usually the experts, if they're asked before he confirms it, can say yes or no. I have a fairly good idea, but I'm not an expert. Interestingly, although he will say on his Instagram account that this is something I've done, he won't. If you then take it off the wall and try and sell it, he won't authenticate it. He won't say, "Yep, this is mine. I did it." Because he doesn't think it should be taken off the wall. So even though you've seen on Instagram, it's a Banksy, but the auction house wants an authenticated certificate, he won't give it.
No, good for him. I wonder if at any point we'll see him, I don't know, on the Graham Norton show or something, giving a full interview, and we'll see who he is. You don't think that'll ever happen, no?
Well, maybe when he's in his dotage or whatever. But the first book I wrote about him, I did ask as I was finishing the book whether it would be possible to have an interview, and his agent said, well, you'll have to show us the manuscript first. And in journalism on the whole, you don't show people what you've written and then hope that they'll agree to an interview. So I said, no, I'm not going to show you the manuscript. So whether we would have got an interview or not, I don't know, but we weren't going to play ball like that.
No.
So he's quite strict about what he will do, or not quite strict. He's very determined about what he will do and what he won't do. And usually if there's a show he's putting on or some special exhibition somewhere or other, like the one he did in Glasgow, not this summer, but the summer before, he'll do one interview with someone. It'll be anonymous and it'll usually be by email, but it's a very controlled interview.
Well, if people want to get a copy of Banksy's Lost Works, it's available on our website, TRE.radio, and it's by Will Ellsworth-Jones, who we've been chatting with today. Will, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.